silence. I hear nothing.
I feel like I need to play like some like pump up music or something.
Hey,
Hey, we're
man.
recording, but we are not live on Facebook yet, so we can.
Oh, here we are. We are live. Oh, there it is.
Wow, so perfect.
We are live. We are here. We are here. What's up, Facebook? Good to see you. Well, not really see you. Good to be with you in some way. Welcome to the CP Live sessions. Call to love, call to hope. We're streaming live every weekday at noon and 7 p.m. Eastern time here on Facebook. So be here, please. I was going to say be here or be square, but you're not square, so you're going to be here. My name is Randall. This is my third year in the Culture Project. I'm from Virginia, and my first year of mission in the Culture Project, I served on the LA team 2017-2018, hashtag Team Guad Squad, and I'm so excited to be here with you guys and to be back on Facebook Live. We are joined by some very special guests. We are joined by Charlie, who is on the LA team this year, Malcolm, who's on the Pittsburgh team, and a very special guest, a guest very dear and near to my heart, Angel Rodriguez, who is my old teammate.
Yay!
Welcome back. Welcome back. You know what they say, if you leave the mission, you never really leave the mission. You will get roped back into doing fun things with us. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here and making the time to spend just an hour with us as we talk about something that I think a lot of us really struggle with. I think this is something that most of us wrestle with in some way, shape, or form. I don't care if you're a type A personality or not. We all struggle with this C word called control, and it's tough. It is so tough. Personally, I struggle with it a lot, and in a time such as this one, where we are stuck in our houses, the world has literally stopped, and people are in really tough situations. Some might even be suffering from loss of jobs. Things really seem to be out of our control. And so I think this is a topic that's very, very important right now to be talking about. So why don't we just get into it right here? What are your guys' thoughts on control? What is your experience with control? Or what is your experience with like trying to set life in order and not being able to do that? Thoughts, please share.
Thank you, Randall. Hello, everybody. As Randall just mentioned, my name is Angel. I was a missionary for 2 years, got to serve in LA with my beautiful team, and then in San Francisco. Shout out to them who are watching. I love you guys. And we're just really happy to be able to have this conversation. I talk kind of fast, so I will try to slow myself down. But just to like begin with something kind of funny. So I'm currently a social worker, and I work out of San Diego County. And with everything going on, you know, it's been a little tough on us social workers because one, we still are being asked to go out to work, but then we're also being asked to switch up how we do interactions with people. And, you know, for all of us, whenever we have conversations with people, having them face to face is so important because you get to have an entire different perspective of what that person's going through. So I was super excited that I got reassigned to our children's center. So I was going to be working out of our children's shelter, and I started yesterday. So the day goes by, it's going pretty well. And then all of a sudden I started to feel super sick. And I was like, oh no, what's going on? Like, is this, like, should I go get checked? Turns out I started getting really lightheaded. So nothing symptomatic of the coronavirus, but I ended up going to the ER, and they discovered that I have an abscess under my left armpit. And let me tell you that was not the business. I was not excited for that. I was just like, no, I just got placed at this position in this place where I really want to work. I want to be working with kids. And they're like, you can't go back for at least a week. And I honestly was just so distraught. I felt like such a break. And like, I can only talk with one hand right now because I can't even lift my left hand. Like, this is all a charade. I don't actually have a hand inside of my left sweater. But it's just, you know, we have these ideas of how things are gonna go, and I was already starting to make plans. Like, I'm gonna get up early, I'm gonna work out, and then I'm gonna head to work. I'll be doing my prayer. I'll do my rosary in the car. All of these fantastic things, only to find out I'm not going back. So I'll be working out from home again, and it just changes up everything. So I think in this time where a lot of us are seeking to have answers, even in the small ways, like the Lord is gonna be doing things that we never expected. Like, I called my supervisor, and we both just laughed about it. We were like, this is so ironic. Like, I was so excited, and this is where I wanted to be the whole time, and then it was just gone. So I think that kind of like brings into reality for me at least, but I think it's the reality for a lot of people too, is that a lot of things are just coming up out of nowhere. Like, we really don't have a lot of control in this situation. And earlier, Malcolm and I were talking about, you know, the idea of this idea of control and it being a bad thing, but then we also talked about like how control can be a good thing. Like, how there are ways, as if any of you have seen Frozen 2, Olaf talks about like doing what you can in the moment when you feel like there's nothing under control. And it's a hilarious scene. I died. I was laughing because that's how a lot of us are right now. Like, we actually don't have control, but we can take control of the small things, whether it's our prayer life, whether it's the way that we're going to work out or not work out because our doctor tells us not to. And it's that idea of surrender and that idea of like, okay, I'm gonna let go. Like, I'm gonna let go to these ideas that I had and the ways that I wanted to do things, and I have to look to God to really show me where I'm supposed to go. Because did I ever think that I was gonna be a missionary for 2 years? No. Like, I thought missionaries went off to Africa and that they like built wells and that they wore sandals. And then I found the Culture Project, and everybody looks like a model, and then talks really well, and just goes out and does things. Yes, of course, Randall. I'm just specifically talking about you. And it was this new experience, but it also threw my life plan completely off track. I was the kind of person, as Randall mentioned at the beginning, the type A. I had my 5-year plan, my 10-year plan, my 15-year plan, how many kids I wanted, like what my house was gonna look like, the architecture, the whole bit. And at this point, I'm like, I'm going on 26. I don't have my master's yet, which I thought I would. Like, I just started a new job in accounting, and it just, everything changes. And there really is this idea that when we learn to surrender, like, we don't lose control, we actually gain it in a more positive way. And I think that's where we talk about, you know, this idea of order and what like order looks like.
What would you guys say is, first of all, thank you for sharing that, Angel. I'm sorry that's a tough time. I'm sorry, man.
We're here. We're doing
yeah,
it.
Man, we're here.
We're going. Just rolling with the punches.
It's true, man. What would you guys say is like so unsettling about letting go of control? Why is that so unsettling for us as people?
Yo, bro, great question. And again, this is
thank you.
I'm just excited, you know. Yeah, my name is Malcolm, like Randall introduced me. So thanks for lady Randall. Here, missionary, serving with the San Francisco Pittsburgh team. I spent several months working in San Francisco, and now we moved out to Pittsburgh, and we've been really laying down a foundation out here. Obviously, things are different now that it's COVID. We're all quarantined and just doing what we can. But yeah, there's always something unsettling about trying to let go of things. You know, this is funny because yesterday I was planning on getting a car, and I had everything worked out. I had the people that were setting me up with this sweet Honda Accord. It was like this coupe car that had like a stick shift, and everything was smooth until I figured out that when I applied for my loan application, I put something wrong for my address, and there's nothing I can do about it until the next bill cycle comes up. So I had my hands on this beautiful black stick shift Honda Accord, and knowing that I had to let that go and say, you know, I'm gonna get a car. I'm gonna get a car one day. It's just not today, and it's probably not gonna be that one. But I think, you know, we have these plans of what we want to do, and we try. We want things to go one way, and it's really just like our pride in the end that I just realizing like, yeah, maybe I made a mistake, and that is okay. I learned from that mistake, and that's good, because what actually happens is when we make those mistakes, it's not about just like sulking in it. We have to pick ourselves up and say, this is actually going to give me an opportunity in the future to know how I can be better next time. There's this guy named Jocko on YouTube.
Jocko
He's this-
Willink, man.
Yes.
Yeah, you know him, bro?
Let's
Oh,
go.
dude, he's I love him. He's such a meathead.
No, he's so fired, dude. He's this retired U.S. Navy SEAL. If you haven't seen him before, if you're watching, one of my teammates, Brianna, introduced him to me. But there's this one YouTube video where he kind of talked about this, and he said, you know, you failed the test, good. You lost your job, good. You got kicked out, good. You burned your food, good. Just like, you got to keep saying, like, you just got to keep pushing and moving forward. Yo, that's Rocky right there. Got to keep pushing it forward, you know? But yeah, I think it's our pride in the end. It's really our pride that is just so unsettling. We don't want to say that we're wrong. I think especially as men, it's hard to say, I screwed up, I messed up. But it takes a lot of humility, just surrendering that and just saying, you know, I learned from this, from what happens, and I can just keep moving forward, and I know what I can do from here on out. Yeah.
Yeah,
It takes
man.
a lot of humility, man. It's not hard. It's not easy. It's not easy.
There,
Yeah.
you were just, when you were talking about that, I was just thinking about how, like, so many times I think the reason that it's hard to let go of control is because we want it to turn out the way we want it to turn out, right? Like, we have a plan, and so many times we like come up with this plan. Like Angel was saying, he had his whole day planned out, and like, I know what I'm gonna do, and then all of a sudden, like, things go crazy and you don't know what's going on. And I think we like to know what's going on. We like to have order in our lives, but we lose sight of our order when we try to just like over control, you know, when you try to hold on to things. And when you're saying like Jocko being like, hey, you lost your job, good, you know, and you're like, well, so many people, whenever I say something like that to them, it's been like a habit of mine. I don't know how good of a habit it is, but like when something happens to somebody, I'll be like, hey, on the bright side, Olaf does that in the Frozen 2. So it's like, on the bright side, turtles can breathe through their butts. And you're like, what? Like, and you just like comes up with random like happy things to think about. And you're like, and I always think about that in a way of being like, okay, I don't have control over this. It's hard for me not to control this, but I have to look at the bright side. And that's how we can like order things instead of controlling them. Like, I can't control what's going on, but I can order the way that I react to it. You know, I can order what I do in response to what's happening around me. And when I was growing up, I had this huge problem with like justice. You know, like, oh, my brother punched me.
I'm like, that's not something you typically hear. I had a big problem with justice. I'm like,
Yeah.
Like, it was a problem because whenever something was like not just to me, like if something wasn't quite right to me, I would just not let it go. Like, I would not be able to let it go. And like, if my brother punched me and I punch it back and I get in trouble, I was like, no, like, this is not happening right now. Like, listen to me, mom and dad. I punched back in self-defense. I should not be in trouble right now. You know, like, and it was like it was one of those, obviously still a wound. No, but I was like, I couldn't let go of the fact that like it was not in my control. And my mom always said to me, she always said, you can only change yourself. You can't change other people. And like, I had to kind of deal with that. I had to be like, okay, I can't change other people. I can't change how other people respond. I can only change how I respond to things. And I think that's where like I like focus on when I'm thinking about like order versus like control of things.
Yeah, man. I was when you were sharing that, I was getting some high key masked vigilante vibes from you. You know what I'm saying? You sound a lot like a Caped Crusader right here. You know what I'm saying? Justice. Someone punches me, I punch back.
Well,
Not
I mean,
out of
what?
offensive anger, but because I'm self-defending
You know,
the truth.
just a little Clark Kent over here.
Okay.
Wow.
I think what all of you guys are pointing to is something that I wrestle with. What I wrestle with is my own response to things. There was like this one instance a couple of months ago where we were out in DC, and we were like working at this conference, and we got there at about 7 in the morning to start working from 7 in the morning to 7 p.m. in the evening. And this is DC, and DC's crazy in my opinion. And I remember like I parked my car in a spot that I thought I could remember. And I remember like we worked the whole 12 hours. It was exhausting. We're hungry. Like Bianca and I were starving, tired, sleepy. We had a double date with a friend of ours. Shout out to Jimmy Carroll if you're watching this. Shout out to you, Jimmy. And we are lugging around this like huge materials bag at like 7:30 at night. And I remember walking in direction, and Bianca's like, "Oh, where's do you know where our car is?" I'm like, "Yeah, I totally know where our car is. It's at the Embassy Suites." And we get to the Embassy Suites. I go in there and I'm like, "Hey, I have my car in your garage." And they said, "Do you have your ticket?" And I said, "No, you guys didn't give me a ticket when I parked here. Is this the right garage?" And they're like, "No, I think you have the wrong garage." And in my head, I was like, "Oh no, my wife is gonna kill me. I lost our car." And I remember like walking out there, and Bianca's like, "Randall, where's our car?" And I was like, "I don't know." And so we spent, I'm not even kidding, like we're starving, we're tired, we worked 12 hours, we're gonna be late for a double date. And we spend the next 2 hours going from parking deck to parking deck in DC, like walking from parking deck to parking deck in DC for 2 hours. And I was losing my mind. I was getting so angry because
Wow.
I was completely out of, like, this was completely out of my control. I had no way, like I had no ticket, no receipt, nothing to like put me back in control. So I was losing all sense of composure. And I was like, no lie, like I was internally crumbling. And we were both, Bianca and I were just both like going at each other, like total vulnerable moment. I remember standing at a stoplight, like fuming. And Bianca was like, "Come on, Randall, like, where is this? What is going on?" And I was like in pure rage. I was like, "Bianca, you're driving me crazy right now." And I thought I whispered it underneath my, like, I thought I whispered it under my breath. And she was like, "Oh, what?" I was like, "Oh, I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm so dead."
Wow.
We ended up finding my car. Like I went back to the Embassy Suites, and the guy was like, what did you pay with?" I was like, "I paid with my debit card." And he was like, "Don't you have like a bank statement in your app or something?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And so it had the address to like where I paid the $12 and stuff. But that was just an instance where I was like, I actually allowed myself to lose control to the point where because I thought that if I could lose control, then I could at least, like, I don't know, like bask in the security of the fact that I'm angry, you know? Because I think there's like a certain security that we want to grasp at when we want to. You're so right, Genesis. Never use the C word on a woman. Yeah, absolutely.
They ain't crazy.
Hey, no,
101 right there.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny, like when you actually lose control, or like when you're just crumbling and you lose your composure, you lose like all of your character and all of the things that you've just like spent years building. So you're absolutely right. I think there's like a certain security in like trying to grasp at control that I think we feel is really, really safe. Would you guys say that that's been your experience too?
Yeah, dude. It's funny. I feel like for us, there's just something about controlling. You guys are kind of speaking on this for now. Just composure, having self-control in situations that are out of your control, and it's funny. It's just funny to like laugh at. Like you have these situations that you can think of that you had no control over, And it really comes down to like, how are you going to react? Kind of like what you were saying earlier, Charlie, like, how are you going to react in this situation? A few years ago, I had a gym membership with Sacramento State, and it was one of the days where just all of the things just happened at once that I had no control over, and there was just nothing I could do about it. Just everything was going wrong, and I could not do anything about it. Like I went to the gym, and I had I had a penny board, and I would just skate around campus to get to the gym. And it was the one time they caught me putting it in my bag because I didn't want to put it outside. Someone stole something from stole my penny board, whatever. So I said, oh, okay, it's cool. It's just one time. I'm not kidding you. I left that gym an hour and a half later, and they took all the wheels from my penny board. And those wheels,
Oh, dude.
they were sweet, man. They were the smoothest wheels I've ever had, and they were gone. And I'm just like, oh, okay, it happens. I'm just gonna move on. I can't do anything about this. I get into the car, I go over. I'm picking up food because of the gym, so I go to Chipotle naturally. And my card wasn't working, and I could not explain what was going on, but there was something going wrong. So I had to leave Chipotle after going through the line with no food. And so it just there's like several things that happened that whole day. I couldn't do anything about it. And so I just got into this moment of just losing it. Like I could not keep like my composure, and it was a learning experience. In those you put your best attitude forward, where it's right to be angry. Like it's okay to be angry. That's like a good thing. But to the point where, is it going to affect other people around you? Are you going to are people going to be negatively affected from your attitude from things that have happened? So that was a learning curve for me. I came home and I just lost it, and my friends didn't know what to do. They were getting pretty upset because I was upset. But then I realized, wow, I could definitely grow in this field of, it's okay that I lost it, but knowing going forward, how can I put my best attitude forward in situations that I can't control?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Where do you guys see us trying to grasp that? Because like we said, like in no way do we want to communicate that control in and of itself is a bad thing, because we actually, especially as men, like we should be able to take control over the things that we've been entrusted to control. That's actually a good thing. So because I feel like we get this, like we put this bad stigma on control, like so-and-so is a control freak, or like you're too controlling or whatever. It seems like when it comes to interpersonal relationships, control has a really negative connotation, when that's not necessarily true. It's only negative when we try to control situations that are out of our control, things that we shouldn't control or that we can't control. Where do you guys see, like maybe us as a society trying to control our situation amidst quarantine? What do you, maybe from your own experience, or maybe from things you've heard about?
I think this actually brings me to like, also in all like transparency, honesty, vulnerability. Like I believe one that's key for our conversations that we're going to be having throughout the rest of this whole experience. There has been a lot of ways in which like my family. So I live with my family, with my mom, my older brother, his wife, their daughter, and my little brother. I have a sister who's in Texas and another sister who's in Arizona, and we all stay in pretty good contact. And there have been days where like I know something's wrong with a family member, and it's like, how do I take the chance to use this moment where otherwise I wouldn't see a couple of these things? And how do I, as a person, like go into that space of theirs where they might be hurting, they might be sad, upset, like, and how do I meet them there? Like, especially with a lot of the things that are going on with the coronavirus. Like my mom lost her job, and like my sister-in-law had to move work, and my niece and my little brother are doing school from home, and they've lost contact with friends, they've lost contact with people that are really important to them. And it's just, how do you meet someone there, like taking those moments where you see that person and really diving in with them. And for me, that brought up this, so that's just like one section of it. But for me, it brought up this like sense of like, man, like I really wish I was a dad. And I was like, whoa, like where did this come from? Like I've always like when I was in high school, they called me teen dad because I was just like the dad to all of my friends. But then I also always had a car seat in my car because I was carrying around like my nephews or my nieces or my little brother. So my nickname was teen dad. I wasn't a teen dad though. But
Thanks
there
for the
was,
clarification.
yeah, I thought I should clarify. But there was like, you know, this spur and all of a sudden in me that was just like, man, like I wish I had like fatherhood. Like I'm fathering so many people, but like there's no like I don't have a child of my own. Like I'm not even dating or married. And it's just like, you know, those things come to mind a lot when you're in quarantine, when you're by yourself, when you have these thoughts that, you know, typically maybe you're overproductive in the day, so you don't give yourself time to think about these things, like the true desires of your heart. Like you're just like go, 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 go. And as long as I keep going, I'm not going to think about what my heart actually wants or like what the Lord is trying to show me that I should be striving for. Like, and I think it's become very apparent to me, at least during quarantine, that like all of us have a specific experience during all of this. Like we all are experiencing something as a collective, like this is a collective trauma, but we also have a unique experience. And I was talking to a friend about that, like the difference between like what makes something qualitative versus quantitative. Like how do you get numbers when it comes to certain aspects of psychology and those kinds of things, like the soft sciences. And it really came down to that degree of like each of us experiences something very unique whenever something happens to us. So even though we are experiencing like the coronavirus as a collective, each of us as individuals is having a unique experience. And I think it's really important for us to like share in those moments where like our unique experience is being affected. Like I can't imagine having to be on mission right now. Like you two, Malcolm and Charlie, like you're on mission. It's being drastically affected. Like this is your first year. Like I can't imagine like what that has had on the toll on your teams or the toll that's carried for each of you spiritually, individually, like going from having mass every day and holy hour every day to all of a sudden like not having those things. And I was having a conversation with another person from the Culture Project, Kayla, if you're watching, shout out, who she was saying, you know, like there's some people who are really restless with the idea that they can't go see Jesus, with the idea that they can't go meet the Lord. And it's like, well, what are you doing to meet him in this place where you can meet him? Like, and again, it goes back to that idea, Randall, like, what are you doing when you can control something? Those things that you are allowed to grasp at, those things that you can work through in these moments, because, you know, this is a vulnerable time for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Angel.
I had a moment, more than a little bit of a moment, a couple of days ago. So I like doing magic tricks, just, you know, a couple of card tricks here and there. I know like 4 card tricks total, but like I learned this new card trick and I practiced it a ton. And I went to do this card trick for my brothers and I did it for them and they were like, whoa, how'd you do that? You know, and then I did it for my dad and he did the same thing. And then I went to do it to my mom. And when I went to do it to my mom, I set down the cards. And one of the things with this card trick is, you know, typically, as people probably know, a non-professional, you know, a lot of times sets the deck, you know, so that it's set up one way or another. And in this particular card trick, I had the deck set and I set down the cards and I turned around so that I could make like a prediction of what the card was going to be, you know, and then at the end I reveal the card and oh, wow, you know, and I turn around and my mom grabs the deck and quickly shuffles it. And when I turned back around, she's setting down the deck and I saw her do it. And I said, did you just shuffle that deck? And she was like, yeah, was I not supposed to? And I was like, at that moment, I just got so mad, you know, like I just got angry because I don't know what it was. I think it was just a combination of all these different things that were not going right in the world and all the different things that just were not in my control. And I thought, wow, this magic trick, I'm in control. I'm in charge here. You know, like I'm going to be the one that fools everyone else. And then my mom did that. And I just was like, I can't believe you just did that. And I like stormed off. Like I was mad. And I didn't like, it wasn't the fact that my magic trick was ruined. It wasn't any of that. I was just like, I couldn't understand why I was so mad at it or why I was so upset. And as I left and I just like took some time alone to like just pray about it. And I was like, okay, what am I gonna do here? Like, why am I responding so strongly to this? And I just realized it was because I wasn't in control. And because I was trying to control that situation, which is what I'm supposed to do with the magic trick anyway, is control the crowd, like misdirection and all that stuff. But I lost control. And because I lost control of the magic trick, it like flooded my brain with all of the things that I had lost control of in the last like month. And I just lost it. And so I think one of the things that I did to try to just like re-enter myself back into, okay, you don't need to be in control. It's okay. Like you can still like choose how to respond. I went downstairs and I started just talking it out. And I explained to my mom etiquette of card tricks. For those of you who don't know, don't do anything the magician doesn't tell you to do. It's just no more, it's just no fun.
True.
The point of a card trick is to let yourself be fooled, just so everyone's clear. But I was able to use that time to just explain to my mom how magic tricks work and what the point of them was and all this stuff. And I was able to just like have this moment with my mom where I apologized for losing my temper over something that she didn't mean to do, and it was like an innocent mistake. And so just like communicating with the other person, especially in these times, if you're stuck in the house with somebody and you're just like on edge because you're not in control and you want to be in control and like things aren't going your way, like communicate with that person. Take some time to just recenter yourself. Take some time to just be like, okay, I need to let myself let go of this control of this moment. And a lot of times, especially, I don't know about you guys, but especially for men that I've noticed, like we need to take a little bit of time to let go of control. It takes a little bit of doing to get us to let go. So yeah, that's just something that I have personally learned in the last couple of weeks. When you're not in control, take some time to let go of those things that you don't really need. Again,
Yeah.
Frozen reference.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Wow. This Frozen theme is just so constant.
I mean, it is
Wow.
snowing outside in South Dakota, so
Wow.
What in the world?
yeah,
Dude,
there's like a foot
April.
of snow out there.
Wow. It's funny, like talking about like how things are so different in quarantine now. I know for me, so I'm from New England originally, and there's just this stereotype that we're always on the go and we're always like super busy and trying to be as productive as we can. I think that also, I mean, that obviously goes, I think for us as men as well, we want to be as productive as we can because there's something innate within us just to want to provide for others and to be a leader in that way. The last few weeks, I've obviously things are so different for Mission. Here I am, just one week, I'm going to like all these different schools or churches every day, and then this like shelter in place hits, and we're all indoors. All the schools are shut down, and it's like, wow, what do I do? And so there's just like this like pulse of like, oh, I gotta do something. I gotta get things done. And so the days just start becoming this blend of just doing a bunch of stuff and then ending up more tired than I usually should be. I think us and what our culture is trying to shifting to right now is really being able to just be still and just be. I think it's so easy to just do things and to be a doer, but to be this sounds kind of funny, to be a being is so incredibly difficult. Even for me, it's so hard for me to be sitting still and just to sit and just be present to the present reality of where I am. We have all these plans of what we want to do. There's these things that we want to get done, but just sitting and just being with myself, being comfortable with who I am. I think that's hard for a lot of people right now. I think it's hard to say. There's things that I think a lot of us struggle with on our own. There's these fears and anxieties that we've been able to repress from being so busy that all of a sudden doing nothing, they just start coming up, and they're much more hard to just like repress and to put away. So I think it's actually like, it's been good for me. I think the first few weeks were so difficult, and now I'm doing a program through the Catholic Psych Institute. So shout out if you're watching, Dr. Greg, called Catholic Mindfulness, and it's just this like Catholic presentation. It's just like this way of like being able to be like to take care of yourself in a healthy way with your mental health, and trying to live and just give everything and surrendering everything. And it's been amazing. Like, I just realized, like, wow, it is so hard for me to sit still. I can't do this. This is so hard. But it's been getting better. Like, I'm starting to be more comfortable with just trying to find a balance, between resting and doing things. I think that's where order can come in super well. Being able to create for yourself like an ordered structure, so that way you get things that you need to get done in a certain amount of like a time frame, and then setting aside another time frame just to do something that's like relaxing, that's just not doing something, you know what I mean? Like, whether that's like reading or creating something. Like, I like playing guitar, so finding time to like play guitar. Yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, a priest
Yeah.
friend of mine always says we're human beings, not human doings. So stop doing things, like you were saying, like how do you just be? How do you just like live in the moment? The other day somebody said that to me. Somebody was talking to me about being like a free spirit, and I was like, I don't know if I'm a free spirit. I think, and they were like, maybe you're just more of a live in the moment kind of guy. And I was like, yeah, I can see myself being like, I'm very much like, I just pay attention to what's going on right now. And I've always kind of been that way. And we were talking about it because I was late for something, and I was like, oh, sorry, I completely forgot that I had something going on. I was late. Sorry. Like, I was just living in the moment of what I was doing instead of like constantly trying to do something else. I was just like being present. So it's really, it's really helpful to find that balance, Malcolm, of like, where should I like find something to do, or where should I just like let myself be, let myself stay where I am. And I think finding healthy distractions, especially in regards to like not becoming like a place of boredom. Some saint, I forget who it was, somebody smart said that it's that boredom is straight from the pit of hell. Like, that is like the fact. Like, when you say I'm bored, like, it's because you're not being present to what's going on around you. One of those things is just like taking in nature. I don't know if you're like stuck in the house all the time, like open a window and just stick your head outside and like smell a breeze. Like, it's crazy just what like being in the moment of doing something that's just like peaceful can help. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
well, first of all, we are reaching that point in the live stream where we are taking questions. So if you're just tuning in, welcome to our very vulnerable session where we're just airing out the times where we struggle with control and our relationship to control, and have not been our best selves because of it. But hey, maybe you can learn something from it. So if you're just tuning in, or if you've been here the whole time, please feel free to leave your questions for us in the comments, and we will answer those as soon as we can. I wanted to actually really quickly build off of what you guys were sharing. I think it was Pascal that said something along the lines of like, all of the world's problems stem from the fact that a human being cannot sit in a room by themselves and do nothing. And I was like, yeah, wow.
Dang.
Yeah. And I found, like, at least for myself, in whether it's quarantine or not, COVID or not, like, I think a lot of us try to find control in our lives by trying to seek autonomy or individualism, where we're the masters of our own story, or we're the masters of our own life. Whereas that's not true, because if that's the case, then all of the world would be, or it should be, under our grasp and our control, you know. But that's not the case. I found that's not the case, and I'm sure you guys have found that too. We're not the masters of our own life, and so because of that, like, we are not ultimately the ones who are in control here. We're not the boss, you know. We get to decide how we respond to how life seems to be living, but I remember Chris Stefanik saying, like, maybe it's not like when a really hard circumstance is in our life, maybe it's not our circumstance that has to change, maybe it's us. And that means, like, releasing this temptation to want to control. But Angel, did you have any thoughts? I didn't mean to cut you off if I did.
Oh, no, dude. I was just gonna say to Charlie, when I was like 6 or 7, my mom would tell us, like, if we came into her and we are like, Mom, we're bored. She'd be like, because you lack God in your life. And I was like, oh my God, I'm 7.
Dude, you told me that all my first year of mission.
Yeah.
All our first year of mission, I'd be like, Angel, I'm bored. And you'd be like,
Yeah,
"What's the
but
good
you're already like a 22-year-old man, not a 7-year-old boy. Rolling for your ladybug.
My little
Wow.
7-year-old self was crying.
My mom always used to give us chores to do when we would say we're bored. I actually say that in my talks.
Yeah.
I'll be like, never tell your mom you're bored. She will give you work to do. Never say it.
That's
Dude,
right.
that's like parent code, man. I think that was the same with me. I think whenever we said we're bored, me and my sisters, my mom would be like, oh, so, you know, there's some things you can do around the house. You know, the kitchen, the dishes are really bad. And she's like, no.
I'm not bored anymore, Mom. I just suddenly found something to do.
I promise. Okay, guys, let's get into some questions here. Bianca, my lovely bride, who, by the way, we've reconciled that whole DC thing, so all is well.
I was
Oh,
so
good.
worried.
In case any of you were wondering, we reconciled and we laugh about it now. She says, okay, we're already talking about, like, letting go of control amidst COVID-19, but another question she had was, as someone who struggles not to control, but oftentimes doesn't realize they're even trying to control something, what would you say are some signs or good self-awareness practices that may be helpful for us to know if we are trying to control something? Thoughts?
I think oftentimes it kind of points to, I experience the world through relationships. That's actually all of us. But I'm very keen to how I'm responding to people. And typically, Bianca, when I find myself getting more agitated with someone because they're not doing things the way that I anticipated them to do it, I realize, like, oh, I actually wanted to do this myself. I should have done this. I could have done this better. Now they've messed it up. And then I come back to the point of, like, but I never told them how or what. Like, I think oftentimes it comes down to, like, the idea that people can't read our minds. They don't know what we need them to do or how they can help us. And I think that also points to that idea that, like, if you're anything like me, you probably don't like to ask for help because it's easier to just fight through it, even though you might fall off of, like, the countertop because you can't reach the thing at the top that Randall could probably easily reach. It just comes down to, like, when you're a kind of person who likes to take control and might not notice, if you find yourself getting really weighed down by small things, or if you find yourself, like, constantly struggling to maybe get things that you would normally get done, that might be a sign that, like, you might be seeking to have too much control. That, like, maybe you should let yourself be helped by someone else, or maybe you should ask for help. And I think for someone who likes to control things, like I'm talking about myself, that's so hard. Like, oh my gosh, like when I was going through this whole armpit thing, sorry to bring it up again, But because my whole family was like, can we take you to the doctor? Like, we don't want you to go alone. And I was like, no, like, I want to go by myself. Like, I just want to get this done and handled. And it was just like me trying to take control of the situation. Like, I didn't want it to happen, but it was happening. So why would I burden someone else with something that I already have to deal with? And I think that goes to say of like sharing that load, like that the burden of it all, like sharing those burdens with other people. So if you ever find yourself hiding, if you ever find yourself a little bit extra tired, or maybe just more irritated than normal, those might be telltale signs that it's time to see which parts of your life you're trying to maybe micromanage and learn how to let go.
Beautifully said, Angel, as usual. Any other thoughts,
Thanks, Randall.
Charlie and Malcolm? Of course, man.
Yeah, I can elaborate more. I think everything Angel said was pretty spot on. I usually think that when you find yourself kind of like what Angel was saying about asking for help, I think that's where a lot of people struggle with is this living in an age of individualism, of doing everything ourselves. Really, it's so normalized that we don't really think about it. I know, for example, I did this one small group activity when I went through a retreat in high school where we're all blindfolded, going around like we were just going around in this circle that was kind of like this maze, and people on the side that weren't blindfolded said, "Raise your hand if you need help." So I just thought, I'm just gonna do this. I'm just gonna go for it, and I just didn't raise my hand, and then it was like 10-15 minutes later, I'm not even kidding, I raised my hand, and then I took my blindfold off, and I was the last one out of 40 people. I did not want someone to help me. I just wanted to do things myself. So I think if you think, if you find that you're a burden for asking someone for help, whether that's with a project, maybe it's something in school-wise, just like asking for help on something that you don't understand. Maybe even if it's just finding that there's something that you're like emotionally struggling with and just think this is fine, I can just deal with it myself. Those are like some small signs of just wanting to take things on your own and just thinking that you'd be a burden for someone else. And like in most, like if not all cases, like people want to be there to help you. They want to take care of you, and you're not a burden. What you're going through is very human, and what we go through in trying to control is very human, wanting to deal with things ourselves. But just ask for help, I think, is the easiest thing to do. Yeah.
Awesome, Malcolm.
I just wanted to briefly ask you a question about.
I think you're
Oh,
froze.
That's not very brief.
Wow.
We lost Charlie.
Such
I
a
know.
cliffhanger.
Oh man.
One's
Okay.
down.
Well, while Charlie's trying to get back on, let's try and we have a couple of other questions and only about a couple. Oh, Charlie, you're back. Okay, go ahead, please.
Hey.
My B.
You're good, bro.
sorry. Okay, so I was asking, what about the times when you're not struggling with something? Is because sometimes it's easier almost to like let go of control when you're struggling with something and being like, okay, well, somebody can help me with this. But what about like, are you over controlling when you're not struggling with something? That's my question.
What do you?
I think
What's your thought?
I think is this an actual question? Do you want somebody to answer? Because
Yes,
if not,
yes,
like we
please,
can go on to somebody else's answer. I was gonna say I talked about this with Randall a while ago, and we were talking about how, you know, we as people, like in our society, we have been like almost conditioned to produce. Like we have been conditioned to make things for our society. And I think that's where we go back to that idea of like going, and never actually stopping to think, and never stopping to like take a second and look at our surroundings. Because I know a lot of people who are very successful, make a ton of money, and they're so miserable. Like they actually when they look at their lives, they're like, I'm not actually happy because I'm not doing the things that I love to do. So I think, well, yes, there are times where we might not be struggling, and we might not show signs of struggling. We might be getting great sleep, like all these other things might be happening. But if we find ourselves doing things for the sake of simply doing them and not seeing like how those things are good in and of themselves, I think that's also a sign that we might be needing to take a little bit of a step back. Because everything might be going great. You might be getting your promotion. You might be getting, you might be moving into a bigger house. You might be getting a bigger car. You might be getting the grades you wanted. You know, you might finally start dating that guy or that girl. Like you might finally like have all these things that you wanted and you've been working for, but then you stop and you finally think and you're not actually like happy. So I think even though those things might be happening, they might be good, it's always important to just take that step back and just reassess. Just take a second to just reassess.
Yeah, that's been helpful for me. Taking a step back when I'm like flustered and reassessing. Only if I'm able to catch myself. Sometimes we're not able to. Thank you guys. Genesis asks, is it possible that in trying to gain control, you can actually lose control?
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Please explain.
I think like that, I think is typically when it happens that you lose control. Like, for me, in my experience, like when I'm trying to like gain control, and like when you're trying to like grasp it too much, like there's so many times where like your eyes are bigger than your hands, you know, like, or like you just like take too big of a bite and then you just end up being like, oh shoot, I can't actually control all this, you know, and like you just try to grab everything at once. And then people, like, along with us wanting to control things, we also don't want to be controlled. So if someone is like trying to control everything, then they're going to have to like grasp and like try to control other people as well. And those people are not going to want to be controlled. And so they're going to start squirming and then you're going to lose it all. And like, you're actually going to end up probably worse off than you were before. So again, like you just, in my personal experience, like when I try to control an entire situation, what's going on, how other people are responding, I always end up hurting people worse in the end or making the situation worse because I tried to control it and we don't have the power to control it. No, like we are not, as human beings, as individuals, we are not in control of the world. Like, and we're not in control of each other. And so like when we try to do that, we try to grasp onto those things, we end up hurting other people. What was it? Several years ago, someone said to me, like, was explaining about a baby chick because my family got chickens, and like sometimes the chicks will like ruffle their feathers a little bit while you're holding them, and he was like, don't squeeze it when it does that because you're gonna hurt it, but just like hold it gently enough that it doesn't fly away, you know, like, and that's like that difference between like I'm trying to grasp onto it, I don't want it to move. Well, it can move around, but it's got to stay in your hand, you know. So like there's that like delicate balance of what we can control and what we can't control, and really just like I think it's a trial and error thing, you know. What can't I control, and let go of what you can't actually control.
Yeah. Absolutely. We only have a couple minutes left, so we'll get to this might be our last question, we'll see. But Bianca also asks, what would you say are unique ways that men struggle with control as opposed to women? dot.
Wow. Walking on eggshells here, boys.
I'm just trying to think of how to answer that question as concisely as I can. Yeah, I think that's a great question. So so just to clarify, the difference in control with men and women, right?
Yeah, like how can you see men responding to a desire to control, or how do men struggle with control differently than women might struggle with control? Or at all?
Kind of have an answer. It's formulated-ish in my brain, so if I also just want to give somebody else a chance to maybe share, say have something.
Lay it out there,
Trying to
man.
get super concise. But I think it kind of goes back to, just gonna throw him in there. St. John Paul II talks about the theology of the body, and who we are as people and how our souls have been created. And you know, we as men, like our soul and our body has been created to produce outwardly, like to give, and the woman has been created to receive. Like she makes a home in her body. Like I think that also points to how we respond to desires for control. Like a woman might take, and I'm just from my own experience talking about, like, you know, from having mom, sisters, and teammates who I love dearly, have shown me a lot about like the feminine genius and how women take things and it becomes very internalized. Like they internalize the heck out of, you know, their emotions and a lot of things, because that's how they've been created, and it's beautiful and it's so good. And I love my sisters and my sisters in Christ who like teach me how to help them navigate through those feelings, who have taught me what it means to be a little bit more sensitive, what it means to maybe bite my tongue when I want to say something that I know is right, but they just need to be validated in that. They just need to know, like, hey, like I really feel like things are going out of whack right now, and it's hurting me in my heart. And it's just like, man, like that sounds really hard. I'm so sorry. If you need anything, I'm here for you. Where typically I would be like, no, let me fix the problem for you. Like I can get rid of it, as long as it's not a person. I can get rid of the problem and we can fix this whole thing and, you know, be done with it. Because I think that's our nature as men. Like when we come across something that we want to control, it's like, well, let me fix it. Let me fix the problem and then it will be done. And I think that's part of our like wanting to do nature and our wanting to create nature, is like, let me go ahead and create these things, and in that creation, fix the problem, whatever it is. So it kind of goes back to show us like we have a lot to learn from each other as men and women. We have a lot to give to one another, and like just the beauty of how intentional God was when he created us, like just blows my mind.
Yeah, tell me about it, man. I'm learning every day.
You married man, you.
Hey, man, you know, it's truly sanctifying. Do you guys have any other thoughts regarding that? Regarding like the different struggles between, because Angel, you said that beautifully. Do you guys have any thoughts to build off of that?
I was just gonna say that almost the same thing. That Angel, like, I think men more struggle with like fixing rather than like having more. You know, like I feel like, yeah, it's kind of like the difference between like we both all struggle with taking control of things, but on the women's side of things, they like you wanted to have it your way, and the men, they just want it to be done with. Like they just don't want things to be like okay, you know, especially when it comes to like problems between men and women, and like struggling with like, oh, this is a thing we're both struggling with, like between each other, like you hurt me, I hurt you, whatever. Like the woman just wants him to listen, you know, and just be like, oh, just listen and say that's really hard, you know, and the man just wants to be like, I just want to fix it, like I just want this to be over with. And like I think there's I want to say like both men and women struggle with control. But it's a very different struggle, because like we are the heart of men is very different than the heart of women. Like we are ordered towards different things. Yeah, like Angel was saying, so beautifully said, and I tried to reiterate it and botched it horribly. So
Oh my gosh, no, Charlie, that was
Dude, that was solid, bro.
It was, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Malcolm, any
It
thoughts?
actually, yeah, Malcolm, please.
You know, you guys are shedding light on this. So, I mean, you guys are saying everything I'm thinking about. You know, like just me as man, like I know I want things to be fixed. I want to fix things, especially but especially when it comes to relationships, you want to make sure the woman is that you're dating or that you're married to is doing well, that she's safe and comfortable and is thriving in her freedom as a human person. And yeah, I think there's those moments that when we see someone that we love struggling through something, we do want to be there and to just fix it in the moment. But for us as men, just surrendering that and just being an active ear to them. Yeah, that's so important. They really need that. And for us, that's a huge learning curve for us to just like figure out over time is how can we best be there where we don't need to fix something, but just to be present, and our presence should be enough. Yeah, so I think that's pretty huge. I think, yeah, for women, the control is different. I think if a woman doesn't feel safe or doesn't feel like they're being received in the way that they should, you know, I really think that's when some women really want to take control and start doing the things that us as men are born to do, where they start fixing things that men should be there as a protector and provider to fix. I don't know if you guys had thought about sharing a little bit more, but yeah, that's where my mind is is going towards when it comes to the difference between the man and the woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to really kind of like that kind of points to like what I found to be a central theme as we're closing out tonight. Like a central theme that all of us have been talking about is like when it comes to control and trying to find order in our lives, probably one of the most masculine things we can do is to surrender. You know, like that masculine tendency to want to fix, to want to take hold of something, which is so good and so necessary to us as men. But we're called to take stewardship of that when it comes to what's within our realm and what's being asked of us to control and what's being asked of us to take a hold of. But when it comes to things outside of that, like something that's masculine or maybe even more masculine in that particular circumstance would be to let go of that too, you know, to let go and to have the courage to let go. And with that, that's about all the time we have. I'm sure the four of us could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. It honestly has not felt like an hour at all for me personally. You guys might feel differently, but I definitely am just like, yeah, really edified.
Chill, man. Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thank you so much for receiving us in our poverty as we share our humanity and our struggles and the times where we might not have been our very best, all to really just like maybe share and help all of us realize our own poverty. So I hope that in us sharing our poverty, you got to experience a little bit of your own and to rest in that. Please join us tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern as we continue our live sessions tomorrow with Genesis, Olivia, Brianna, and Dr. Monique Ruberu. Dr. Monique, if I just mispronounced your name, I apologize in advance. They'll be discussing the issue of contraception. So during this time, the Culture Project lives on. So please consider making a donation to us at thecultureproject.org/donate. Without your support, we won't be able to flourish as a mission as fully as we might be called to. And the Lord might be putting it on your heart to be generous with your finances. And the Lord might also be putting it on your heart to let go of control and to maybe be a missionary with us too.
Oh, what's up?
So if you're watching this and you have felt attracted or drawn to the Culture Project in any way, I just want to invite you to seek out more information on us. If you feel so courageous, please apply to the Culture Project, surrender a little bit of your control, and see where the Lord takes you. I just want to let you know, applying does not mean you are committing to us. You're just discerning with us. And that means just more conversations with us at the Culture Project. And we are absolutely happy to be able to talk with you. So with that, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Charlie, Malcolm, and Angel for taking some time to talk about ordering our lives and the balance of control. Thank you everyone for submitting your question. If we weren't able to get to it, we apologize. It was a gift to be with you anyway. It was a gift to be with all three of you. With that being said, take care. Have a good night.
All right. Bye.
Good night, guys.
Bye.